Buonasera,
Hello.
hello, welcome to the Diagonal. Even tonight we will talk about the France election. I'm Antonio, here Davide and Ciro. So, let's start.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Ready?
Yeah,
Great.
ready. And
All
tonight everything
right.
looks good.
Yeah, everything looks good. Even I think we fixed our audio issues. Great. So we can start with our little presentation as we focus on that, and of course we will also share the articles that we have used as inspiration, and sorry, not as inspiration, as a reference for some of the discussion that we'll have tonight further. Let's start. Davide, you can give us a brief exposition of this presentation about the France elections.
Yeah, hi everyone. Tonight, actually tonight we wanna make a brief exposure about the recent outcomes of the France election. So as you all know, Macron won the election, and he was the second French president in the history of France to be re-elected for the second term in the last 20 years. So basically, by exposing this presentation, we wanna point out some of the most important and crucial factors that, in our opinion, affected this election and the grassroots of these results. Um, it was a very important election for, as you can see in our title, for Europe, for the European Union, because Macron and Le Pen have very different opinion and point of view about European Union function and system. So the victory of Macron can mean something for the future of European Union. The European Union we all know. So yeah, that's basically a very brief introduction of tonight's exposure.
Okay, sounds good. So we can have a brief introduction. How we start on this our analysis on this aspect? So
I
we
would
can
say
start with an
if we have an
article.
article, yeah, if we have an article to share, let's start with that one.
I think
Yes.
we can go ahead with the presentation because the second page can show something interesting about the result.
Okay, we can go further with the second page.
Yeah,
So we have a comparison. What I can see, we have a comparison between the last elections and the previous one, and the margin between the Le Pen vote and the Macron vote has changed quite a bit in 5 years. How this is explainable, Mr. Davide?
Well, as you can see,
how we can explain
Le
this
Pen,
difference?
Yeah, the numbers are very important. As you all can see.
Yes.
There has been, I mean, Le Pen during this election was able to reduce the margin by 16%, compared to the last election in 2016. So she was defeated, but the far right, I mean, it's noticeable that far right, has seen its support, its electorate drastically increased. So in Italy we say bicchiere mezzo pieno. I mean,
Okay, half
Half a glass
half
full.
full, yeah, half full glass, yeah. All right. So,
half a glass.
considering these margins, how we can explain this difference in these margins? So, what happened in the last 5 years that has led Macron to reduce the vote,
Yeah,
the support of the French population, of the French people?
yeah.
What he did wrong?
There are, yeah, there are many, elements, factors, issues that can describe the reasons why, Macron's electorate decreased a lot. You know,
Yes.
we have to remember that before COVID, Macron had been facing probably the worst riots, the worst outrage, popular outrage uh, against the president.
Mhm.
I don't want to say since the France Revolution, but the yellow gilet protest, outrage, riots
Mhm.
were something very difficult to manage for
Mm.
Macron.
Mm.
So
Okay.
basically, those riots were mainly related to the green policies of the Macron government. He wanted to drastically reduce
Mhm.
the 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 use of petrol cars. So he decided at the time to increase the price
So green,
of the petrol.
those green economy politics and intervent
Yeah,
haven't been
that was
accepted by the population,
the
or the
drastic of the
population
year.
didn't like them, or did like them. What do you say? They liked this
Well,
kind of
like,
new green policies made by the government of Mr. Macron, of President Macron.
from my perspective, the majority of population, of course, didn't agree with the increase of the average price of petrol.
Okay.
Um,
So you
so, in
think
my
you
opinion,
say
he should have.
you're telling me that Macron has made an institutional um, act to increase the price of the petrol, to
Yeah,
increase the use of green sources to feed vehicles, and
exactly.
also using the bike and promoting the green behavior. And this has didn't like to the population of France.
Yeah, of course, it
So in
sparked
general,
an
was a
outrage.
part of the problem.
Sparked
All right, all right. And
all over the
there is
planet.
any
Yeah.
other? I don't. I mean, this aspect doesn't look like a bit too poor to justify this huge loss of
Of course,
support
the
from the
COVID
country.
COVID
Mm,
pandemic, the COVID
mm,
pandemic uh, played played a
mm,
role in that. I mean,
mm,
it's significant to describe the decrease of Macron. The introduction of the Green Pass, for example, because France, along with Italy and Germany, was I mean, was another country that decided to introduce
mhm,
this controversial tool.
mhm.
And actually, this tool was um, um, was the main element that sparked outrage in the overseas territories as well.
Okay. Ciro, what do you
In the
think about? Do
state
you
of
have any
Italy,
question as well for
Yes,
it?
so mm, let's compare this percentage with, for example, with Italy. Now, in
Mm,
2017, no? 2017, it was the year in which the far right of our country, Salvini, was a star. He was rising as a star.
No, we're
He was
talking about
40%
2018. 2018.
2018. Yeah, I mean
yeah, but at the
Salvini.
time
That was the
he
period
was
in which
already gaining a
Salvini.
lot of votes.
That was the period in which Salvini started shining as a star. Instead, Le Pen was still like not even the half of the votes of Macron. Instead, what happened now? We arrived in 2022. Salvini completely destroyed his image as a far right. Instead, Le Pen took 10 points compared to 2017 and almost reached the gap with Macron. And both are Putin supporters. Both are very close to what is the politics of Putin. So I'm wondering what's the real difference between two people which has more or less the same idea about politics, about immigration, etc. But now in France, it's much more trendy. Instead, in Italy, it's almost dead. That's the thing. Let me think. You
Well,
know,
actually, that depends on the domestic policies, domestic factors. Because in Italy, Salvini, has been facing lots of problems um, since he decided to commit an electoral political suicide. Because in 2019 he decided to yeah basically to put an end on the government with the 5 stars, because he was basically convinced that based on its electoral support at the time, it was around 40%, 36, 37, he thought that probably he could have, I mean, that percentage could could have led him to win, as a first party in Italy. But he didn't take into consideration the fact that the Italian political system, they put together and in order to stop Salvini. So that wasn't a clever act by Salvini. And then pandemic, COVID pandemic has completely destroyed him because he at the beginning, he said, "Okay, we have to close everything. Then we have to open. Then we have to close. Then we have to open."
Okay, okay. But this
He
is
was
about
very
the
uncertain
Salvini
about
as a politician. As politician, um, uh, do you think that this huge loss in Macron support from the French people is only related to the green economy policies that is applied to the country, or maybe he did any other fault, for example, during the election, during the electoral campaign, he has been a bit late, or he didn't focus on the real problem of the French citizens, because another
yeah,
data that
probably we
I
can.
don't know if you have put in the presentation, but maybe yes, is the overseas vote compared with the national vote of the France, and compared with the Paris, with the central region vote, which is a bit different. I mean,
Yeah, we can
this
skip to
can
the
be
next
also okay.
the
We
next
can go. Okay,
page
this
because
is will be
that
okay. This will be discussed further.
other side, that
Okay, we
was
can
the
go to the
side that
next
is
slide, I think, and we can
yeah.
focus on the
yeah.
next one. Yeah, okay, perfect. This one is the center and the suburb fragmentation in the mainland. Yeah, as you can see, this was what I was talking about. There is a huge difference in terms of votes compared between the overseas we have down here and Corsica too. For example, Corsica we still remember is not Italian, and other regions or big cities like Paris, Rennes, Nantes, Bordeaux, Lyon, Toulouse. I mean, it's a huge
Yeah,
difference.
the major towns voted for Macron, while the campaign, the suburbs, let's
Mhm.
define it suburbs,
But maybe
they
Macron
mainly
didn't.
voted for.
But Macron in those regions didn't match the
Yeah,
needs
probably
of the population of the people living in these
because
areas.
I
while he
have
was focusing on.
I have one point to add. So let's look at the French overseas territories. I don't remember which of these five, but I'm sure that one of them has a very high percentage of Muslim. Now,
Yes, it's
it's
Mayotte.
Mayotte, okay.
Mayotte and Martinique too.
Now
All
it's
that.
very well known that Le Pen is not so much Islam friendly. I mean, her politics is not orientated towards towards Muslim. Yet she managed to take the majority of the votes. And I'm thinking, still associating with Italy, also Salvini managed to take a lot of votes in the south of
from the
Italy,
south.
even though the politics of his party was absolutely against the South. If they could cancel it tomorrow, they would do it. I don't understand how does it work in the mind of the people to vote against a party which basically, I don't know if I can use the
But
word
that,
hate.
I think because
that
she
was
cleaned
that was the big
her image. It happened. I think like the Lega Nord in Italy, they wiped
they
out
changed the name of
some of
the
the
party.
racism.
That was the propaganda act,
Yeah, of
you know.
course, the propaganda. They wiped out some of the racism as well. Now, if you think about Lega,
And people
in
believe in that.
yeah, but this is just maybe. Anyway, the fact
No,
is that one, yeah, not everybody's Italian. I cannot understand it. The main problem
no.
is the main problem is in Italy, for example, since 1993, when Lega Nord joined in the parliament till 2022, we got a huge difference, a huge change inside the political party. Lega before was just a northern Italy party, and now still getting elector voters in the South Italy, also because they proposed as a national party. And I think Le Pen have done the same, has done the same in France. So I mean, she wiped out a bit the racist aspect racism aspect of the
It's a
far
kind of
right
rebranding.
rebranding. Exactly, they made a rebrand like a national party. So being although you are black, although you are white, although you are yellow, although any color you have, you are part of the France. Your problem are problem of the nation of France. I think has been her rhetoric in these political elections and also in the campaign. What do you think, David? Do you think is right, or do you think has been a wrong analysis?
Well, there is a fact.
Mhm,
While Macron was fully mainly focusing on Ukrainian crisis, Le
mhm,
Pen was going to the mainland suburbs to um, listen to the middle class requests and needs, you know. And she
mhm,
also flied to um, she also flies to the Caribbean, France overseas territory,
mhm,
um, where she was very welcomed from the local citizens because um, um, she admitted that all those people, especially during the pandemic, they basically had been completely forgotten by the mainland. You know, so she admitted the mistake of the French political class, political leadership, and so she was clever. Of course, that was a propaganda move, you know, by her, but it worked because if we see the next slide, the outcomes, the difference of
mhm,
between her and Macron in the overseas territories,
mhm,
it's noticeable that her electoral campaign in those territories, uh, booked out, booked a lot. She basically doubled, and in other cases, tripled Macron in votes.
Mm.
So yeah, in my opinion, during the 5 years of Macron presidential term, there have been several problems between the mainland and the overseas territories because they required a lot of things. For example, much more funds to support the national health system, the national education system as well.
Mhm.
But at the time, Macron was focusing on, on the mainland problems, yellow gilet riots, and the issues with Germany, with
Mhm.
Trump as well.
Mhm.
So for him, all those people, all those issues were not that important. They
Mhm.
basically they even were not in the political agenda, I think,
Mhm.
or if they were in the bottom, the
And
last
bottom of the political agenda.
spot.
Okay, makes sense. So it means the
Yeah.
population, the French, they supported more those internal
And just to
aspect of the
conclude,
politics instead of the external aspect that was maybe
yeah,
mainly promoted by Macron. Also because in this period, actually, Macron has been quite important because was the only one European leader able to speak with Putin on the other side and able to maybe to make proposal to get the peace. Of course, I'm not
yeah, try to
quoting other
establish
kind of leaders like
diplomatic.
Orban, like for example Erdogan, which has been extremely, I can say, like the bunny in
And
in the
there
cup,
is another curious point
in the
about
hat. You know what I mean? He's been the bunny in the hat. I would never expect Erdogan so promoting the peace. Of course, he did for his interest. Um,
for
anyway, we can go to
reason.
the next one, or would you like to add something else to this slide?
No, we can go to the next one because what I want to add it's related to the overseas territories.
Okay, so we can see the proper data, for example.
Yeah,
In here, you can see Guadeloupe,
another
Martinique, Guyane. Okay, the Parisian. Okay. Actually, they are territory in South America.
yeah,
Look here.
Guyana, the French
Guyana
Guyana.
Francese, yeah, French Guyana, Suriname. All right, let's go down. Macron's electorate. We can see here. How do you want to add any comment to this one? Do you want to
Yeah,
add
basically
something
I
here about maybe the Melancon voters, the minority?
yeah, the majority of the Mélenchon voters they decided uh, not to take part the last election. So they either didn't vote for Macron or uh, for Le Pen.
Mhm,
It's called white vote.
mhm,
But anyway, a small part, a very small part of the Mélenchon electorate decided to support Macron, and
mhm.
that contributed to his victory. And of course, the socialists, the Republicans,
Republicans,
the Greens as well.
the Greens as well.
They,
Okay,
yeah,
they
even though
supported him.
Yesterday,
Green politics,
yesterday I was discussing with Antonio while you were fixing the headphones about what would be a smart move right now for Macron, because now his duty is going to be quite tough because he has to fight internally and he has to choose the prime minister. So what could be a smart move? And this is like a generic question. It's not to none of you in particular. Could he go like, for example, like it happened in 2002, and elect a prime minister which belongs to the opposite party, or would be a smarter move to take someone from his party, even though they have some kind of disparity with Mélenchon? I honestly don't know what it would be the best move for him, because on one side, if he chooses someone from his party, then he has all the part of the country which will keep protesting. And instead, if he puts someone from the opposite party, then he will never be able to take a decision, or anyway to guide the country as he
without
would like to.
giving your point.
I don't know. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in June. Because
Well, now he has to choose someone, and
yeah, he has to
probably
choose.
he will choose a progressist, someone who is well seen by the middle class, by someone who is very popular, someone who is seen very close to social issues, probably. So it's gonna be a smart choice. Probably not the best choice for him, but the best choice for the next elections.
It's going to be a game
But
changer, this.
now it's very uncertain because
Yeah.
we don't know. I mean,
I think we have an article about that. It's about this one, maybe. Let me see if you can. Maybe this one can hide for a moment. I think it's that one. Consent. About the immediate challenge. This one, no? Where there is also a video.
yeah.
Let's see. It's a small video. Not available. Okay. All right. Macron wins a small margin. This one. No? This is the article
that's
where
gonna
it
be
written. Where it
that's
was
gonna be
written
his,
about
This is
the future.
that's gonna be his biggest challenge right now. On top of the fact that he needs to keep his relation with Moscow, because apparently in Europe, Macron is the only one keeping this open relation with Putin, and even though he clearly told him, "Look, what you're doing is bullshit," and don't pretend to justify yourself by saying that you're fighting Nazi, because that's all in your head. He said that. He said that to Putin, and he's the only one at the moment that has such a
Yes,
relation.
he has been also quite more moderate, especially when Biden has defined Putin such like a butcher. So actually, Macron has been bit more like moderate, more in the way say, hey, buddy, be careful what you say.
He's trying to be diplomatic. He's trying to be diplomatic, whereas Biden he's trying to start the Third World War.
But I think Biden has made some communication problems, and also I think Biden is very old. In general, I think Biden has some issues in terms of communication that maybe can depend on the fact that maybe he's a bit old, just sometimes tired. It's not easy to be the president of the United States and you don't have, the age
It's not the
to
best president.
copy
I
with
don't
that.
know. I don't know if the age is a justification, guys, because even though he has his age, he managed to convince the United States population to vote for him and to be elected the president of the United States. It is the most powerful political figures of the world. So I don't know if the age is a justification. Honestly, I think he's a very smart man. You don't arrive to be a president of the United States being old or being a bit dumpy. I don't know if the age is really the problem here.
I don't know. I mean, a bit is the age, and I think also sometimes he speaks too much. But this is common for Biden. I think he did the same during the elections, during the campaign, and also he did a couple of times also inside for question of internal politics.
Now I
But
make you a
about
question.
this election,
I make you a question to both of you. Reply on the spot. Who reminds you among the other presidents of the United States? Who reminds you, Biden?
But
Carter.
yeah, I would say Carter. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't
No,
on the
Carter
word,
is
so I can't say.
Carter is okay. I think
Maybe
it's
on a
like Carter,
stereotype.
but I think Biden won't be a president that would be remembered by the next generations. I mean,
It depends. It
Yeah.
depends from what happened in the next months.
yeah, okay. If we will have the Third World War, 100% we will remember him. But for sure, I don't think we
But
want.
about his
This aside,
election,
we won't remember that.
Ciro said, okay, he was elected, okay. But if we repeat, right now this election, probably Trump is gonna destroy him. I'm sure about
We
Most
that.
will
likely.
see. We will see this on the next middle term election. Remember that we have the
Yeah.
middle term soon, and we have the middle term for the United States, and we will have the National
It's gonna be
Assembly election for the
significant
France. So the situation can be a bit complicated because we have to remember that Trump has tried to open a door to Russians. I mean, like
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah, in
communication
all the
with the United
senses.
States, but also
He had to
because.
thank them.
Also because Trump understood
Somehow.
at the time that he needed another ally against the China. If we think about the China is compressed on top from Russia. So if you can bring the Russia in your
Your
under your
corner.
influence, the China is completely locked.
China will end up having a very strong enemy close to its border. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It
China and
appears
Russia
to me
had a lot
they
of
are already
fights.
siding with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if Trump will be elected again, I don't know if I can say it's going to be too late, but China is already siding with alongside Russia for the moment. They didn't took any position. They are playing very strategically.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
Russia and China uh, relationship wouldn't be that natural because two big empires, two big nations, very close. Uh, it's impossible to agree each other because you have uh, different national interests to pursue, to defend. You have border, in common. So in the past there were several fights between China and Russia on the border.
Russia.
So
Yeah, true.
it's not a natural because many people think that okay, Russia and China, that's gonna be the great
No, absolutely.
relationship.
They
But
are
it's not
just
true because
something
even
together
during
because they have to be together against and a
yeah
third
even
enemy,
during
which is the United States.
during even
Anyway,
during the Maoist regime,
mhm.
the ideological
The ideological idea of
uh,
of the communism were different, yeah. But of course, because we remember at the time was Stalin, the leader of the USSR, or am I wrong?
you are okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
even though they were similar in terms of ideologic theme, they would
They had two
they
different
weren't
aspects of the
aligned.
communism. They had two different
Yeah, for sure.
way of interpreting
Yeah,
the communism. Anyway, we come
but they
back
had the same
to the
enemy, like
main,
United States.
yeah. Come back to the main topic. We have discussed about this one too, the cohabitation risk, the fact that actually the National Assembly can have a different color from the president party. This can make a lot of problem because of course the National Assembly has to give the has to to be able to make the president to be able to have his program executed. So if the National Assembly is against the president, this can block the France. No, this can make the France stuck in changes between this political party war, or not, Mr. David? Do you think it's a different situation?
Yeah, the assembly elections will be a crucial point step for Macron because, as you said, um, having having a prime minister from a different party,
Uh-huh.
that would mean that Macron, anytime
Uh-huh.
he wants to pursue, he wants to take take an action or put some measures into effect, he um, he will need to deal with the opponent party, and it's going to
Uh-huh.
be very tough, difficult, because if Mélenchon won the next assembly elections, that's going to be
Uh-huh.
very tough for Macron. And as you said, yeah, France maybe maybe stuck to, in the assembly. You know?
What do Ciro? You are an economist, a very talented one. Do you think that this cohabitation risk can affect a lot the development, the growth of the French economy in the next 5 years?
Well, definitely, definitely. Every change that happen within government, even if it is a confirmation, can shape the economy in a different way. Now, you see, the election has just terminated a couple of days ago, and we already have this poll from BBC that say that the 63% that voted for Macron will not back him up in the assembly election. You have a country which is completely divided. On top of that,
Okay.
on top of having a politic change, you also have a global situation which is running against time. Why?
Okay.
This situation between Ukraine and Russia will impact Europe in general and France as well. Because if Germany and Italy really manage to, let's say, escape from this, let's call it influence that Russia has in terms of energy producer and distributor, uh, then France will be in a position in which they need to take a side also on that.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of economy, that's, I mean, France has a quite healthy economy.
Mhm.
They have interests all around the world. They have a lot of interests in Italy.
Mhm.
Um, there was a period in which they were buying Italy piece by piece.
Mm, mm.
And
Is that the fact that Italy is okay on this one? I have followed another channel that is called Liberi Oltre, and they have discussed about this. Um, this is partially related with the fact that Italy doesn't have many big companies like, for example, in France, in England, in Germany. We are more a territory where there are small and medium companies, and sometimes is easy for international competitors, Americans, French, United Anglo-Saxons, to get them and to buy them, because of course there is not a huge big national group I think the aspect this was especially related with the fact, especially with the metal workers. In Italy, we have a lot of metal worker companies that are very small, and they produce for big companies, for example, like Electrolux and etc. etc. And this because we don't have many big companies that works specifically for that company. This makes easy for other companies to buy Italian industries. Is that correct, or is that something that
Yes,
Yeah,
you
if you
want
see
to
that,
point
for
about?
example,
the Italian economy has always been characterized by little and medium companies, especially by the one which are managed within the same family. That's part of our DNA. In Italy, we have a clear lack of big companies, the one that can have, let's say, a voice on the market. But if you look at the numbers now, for example, I'm looking at some charts that I can also share, but I can comment easily. So you have to consider this situation between Russia and Ukraine will block, or at least will slow down consistently the GDP of the global economy. Now, in 2021, the GDP of France grew of 7%, okay,
Mhm.
in the entire 2021. Now, in the first half of 2022, the GDP is expected to grow of 3.2%, only in the first half. So the numbers look quite solid for France. And I think that the situation with Macron can consolidate or even strengthen the situation in France. I don't actually see any risk for them to after these elections. I think that there are other countries that should be worried, but I don't see it with France.
I just give me a second. I will share with you something that maybe can be interesting
Mhm.
about the fact that you say that we can comment them too if you want.
Yeah.
I understand. Just give me a second. Upper tab, Statista. This one. All right. Maybe you can see it. I don't see. Show stream. You can see it, no? This is from Statista. If you can see. This is the forecast selected European countries 2021.
Mhm.
Those data shows the first one is Ireland, Croatia, which has
Mhm.
recently joined the EU, Greece 8.5%, so it's growing up a lot. United Kingdom 7.5, Estonia, France 7%, and France is one of the main contributors of the eurozone.
Yeah.
Luxembourg, Germany, Italy 6.5, and Germany is not in the first top. What happened to Germany? Just 2.8%. So this is a bit weird, no? Do you
This
have any
this looks
explanation about how is that
well.
possible? 2.8% is the second is the largest contributor of the eurozone in the last years. Do you
Well, you
know?
have also to consider that the 2.8% of the GDP of Germany, it's not comparable to, for example, the 7.5 of Estonia. Why? Because you need to compare the growth of the GDP.
Right.
So
Yes.
if you have a Germany which has example a GDP that is 1,000 and it grows by 2.8%, you have Estonia which instead has like 100x less. So
All right.
you have to consider that when you are a country, Italy, Germany, France, US, etc., are countries which are the wealthiest countries in the world. So they arrived into a status which is called, in economics, called steady state. So they arrived at a certain point in which their GDP can't grow too much compared to, let's say, developing countries, like, for example, India, etc. Those countries, of course, will have a higher forecast always. But why?
Mm,
Because they start from a situation which is completely different from already
yes.
consolidated wealthy
So
countries.
in term, yeah, okay, of course, this is the reason why we use the percentage, to normalize them.
Exactly.
and not calculating them as just a simple amount of billion of euros made. But in this
That
case, it's
said,
interesting to see that Germany that was already getting down in terms of growth. This
yeah, no,
is
of course,
so, and now
of
the
course,
situation can
Germany.
be even worse in the next 3 years.
You have to consider that Germany spent a relevant part of their GDP to, let's say, modernize the way in which they produce energy. But still, although they spend billions, they still depends from Russia's gas.
Also because
I
they were making the Nord Stream 2, that was
exactly.
giving them another supply of the gas equal to
And
the first one.
imagine after
Yeah.
after making such an effort, then you need to stop the relations with them. It's quite tricky for Germany. I
Yeah.
do like, for example, what Estonia is doing, because I think you are aware, Estonia is developing a country which is basically fully online. They are developing a lot in terms of robotics and programming. They're starting
And
teaching
also
it
a
to
lot of in terms of cybersecurity as well. I think Estonia
yeah,
has also give you the e-residency, so you can
yeah,
have an
exactly,
electronic
exactly,
residency, and also many neobanks. I mean, like
exactly,
Revolut, for example, but not only they
exactly.
have their headquarter for Europe in Estonia, because Estonia, sorry, has given easily the bank licensing to them. So this is the new model of developing of Estonia to becoming like such like a Switzerland 2.0 of the
I,
Europe.
I
Am I
see I
wrong?
see a bright future. I see a bright future for Estonia. I see a bright future for Estonia,
Mm.
especially if they open up on the blockchain.
Mhm.
I see a very bright future for Estonia.
Okay, so maybe they can be the next Luxembourg, the next Switzerland of Europe.
Well, I think that in terms of technology and development on the, let's say, online side, they are ahead of many already consolidated countries. So let's wait and see. But I'm very curious to see how Estonia is going to develop
Okay, maybe we
in the
should
next
make
few
an
years.
episode about the Estonia and the kind of reform they made in the last 20 years to
Yeah,
become
yeah, why not?
an e-country, such like that. So we can come back to our topic. We can back on to the presentation. Those are the possibilities that Macron can have in the future. Davide, can you explain us a bit better those possibilities that Macron can take over to face with the National Assembly if, of course, the parties in the Assembly won't reflect the presidential election winning?
Yeah, yeah. Here in this slide, we have tried to point out what what might be the next measures, the next actions Macron could take in order to, in order to increase its chance to win the next assembly election. Well, first of all, the current energy inflation uh, is it's a very popular topic in France, as well as in all the all the European countries that are affected by the Ukrainian crisis. In terms of energy, especially the most uh, um, the most dependent country to Russian gas and petrol. So that, in that case, the Macron government um, made a statement. For now, it's only a statement. So let's see if they are going to put it into effect. But during the electoral campaign, and that was, in my opinion, the major move played by Macron. They promised that they are going to set a price cap on gas and electricity, in order to um, to make sure the middle class will be able to face these these energy inflation.
Just a question.
And
This measure was not also proposed in Italy with a very low success. I think was proposed in Italy to reduce the taxes on the energy, to reduce the price by cutting the
the
taxation,
problem is
and to cover the
Italian
inflation
part.
fluctuation. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Do you remember something like that about Ciro?
No, honestly, no.
Do you remember that in Italy they discussed about to reduce the tax tag on the energy, on gas and oil? I
But
think they did as
in
well something on the petrol to reduce the price under €2 in the last.
but that's where in France or in Italy, where?
No, this is the option that they are developing in France, but I'm thinking that they have tried to do the same in Italy.
Well, this it corresponds only to one thing, that the government has to inject money in
Yes.
order to. For example, in Luxembourg, what happened is that before the starting of the war, before starting of the invasion, Luxembourg placed the price of petrol like steady at 1.5, which is a huge raise, because in Luxembourg during COVID we also saw the petrol at 80 cents per liter, and the maximum that it
The
reached
fuck?
was
80 cents per liter is like a dream.
yeah. And
80 cents per liter is a dream.
the
Wow.
maximum that it reached, it was 1.1, 1.2, but then the government decided to place it at 1.5 in order to avoid people coming from border countries, just
To get it.
to fill up the car and coming back to their country. So
All right,
they
makes sense.
decided that Luxembourgish can pay 1.5, and actually it was at the end of the day, it lasts only 1 week, because exactly 1 week after there was the invasion, and the price raised to the
Of
stars.
course,
We
because
also,
of the limited sources
yeah.
and supply. Makes sense. Davide, can we come back to the point that to the steps that Macron should take to?
Yeah,
Let's continue.
sure.
Don't be shy. There is
No,
another
because
economist is
I
following us,
wanted
just
to
to say, you guys.
reply to your question about Italian Parliament, who was discussing about
Mhm.
taking this measure. But in the last few months, the Italian Parliament even didn't discuss about whether sending or not weapons to Ukraine, because that decision was only up to Mario Draghi, to the government, which is a violation of the Italian constitution. Anyway, we should focus on this topic on France, not Italy. Otherwise, it's gonna take
Absolutely.
long.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So we come back.
mm,
The new cabinet setting, how this will be, it will be crucial ahead of the assembly election to choose a figure
yeah,
who is
we
close to the social issues that may persuade parts of the electorate. Do you mean of the left electorate? Do you mean like somebody like a middleman? I don't know. Maybe it can be some. Do you have a name? Do you think about a name in currently?
well, Macron should try to persuade, for example, a big part of the Mélenchon electorate.
Mélenchon, okay, the Mélenchon electorate. Do you think if he
Getting not
set
easy.
Mélenchon as prime minister, this will be a chance for him to gain a national assembly on his side?
Yeah, but in this case, a French citizen uh, should be reasonable, should think carefully about what it could be, what it could mean uh, if there was a cohabitation situation.
Mm.
So from my perspective, okay, I voted for Mélenchon because my ideas and his ideas matched. But
Are
now
you a French?
Macron
Are you a
won the.
French? Do you have a French passport?
No, I said from my perspective.
Perspective. If you are a French citizen, you would vote for Mélenchon. If you were a
Yeah.
French,
If
oh,
I
okay. If you were a French
if I
citizen,
were
French citizen. Why is it so bad to be Italian? Why you should be a baguette
what?
Italian? No, kidding. Trying to make less serious this part. So,
No, because
so you would vote
a
for
cohabitation
Mélenchon,
situation
for Mélenchon
would be
because it's
bad
closer to you.
for political domestic.
Okay. So Mélenchon is
That's
closer
why.
to your idea, Mélenchon.
No, I didn't say that.
No.
I I was imagining
Mm,
if I were a French citizen and I
mhm.
voted for Mélenchon, even though
All
my
right.
ideas and his ideas matched, but
And if
probably
Macron would outsmart all of us and say, "I will put Le Pen as my prime minister,"
If he's not stupid.
if he's not stupid, but if the
No, it's
National
like taking
Assembly, her
a
party
gun.
will be the majority.
It's like taking a gun and shooting on your feet. No, impossible.
No,
I would be
impossible.
extremely surprised to see something like that.
Mm, no, will be interesting. So, and there is
Well,
also another point:
surprises.
rebuild. Mhm.
Surprises
Surprise?
are behind the corner. In Italy, we have seen it with the Cinque Stelle, no, the five
Yeah,
stars.
5 stars.
We
Five
will
stars.
never side along the Democrats and never with the far right. And then, in order to get the seat in the parliament, decided exactly with them. So,
Yeah, but we don't have to do in this rhetoric. They had to make a government. That was the only option, Ciro. Otherwise, you should have gone again to election, wasting other 3 months. Government in Italy for 6 months with no government.
so
So
don't make
it's not
statement.
easy.
No, don't make statement. You can clearly, you can still find online statement from Di Maio, etc., saying we will go out from euro, out from the
Ciro,
euro.
Ciro, you know the
So
game. I've been,
yeah,
I've been a candidate of the Movement 5 Star in Italy, in the city of Ercolano. So
yeah. One
we
one
can
thing.
make
One,
all the slogan and statement we want, but when we are facing with the real issues, with the real politics, with the real procedure that you need to do, because everything in Italy have a procedure. The first thing when you get elected, is to study like 10 different manuals about the procedure on how to make an assembly in a council. Believe me, it's
and do,
crazy. And
you
you are
really
like
believe?
that, and you think that the fact is that when you are a candidate, you never have been in politics. You don't understand that. You think, oh, you can do everything, but there are some rules, and even in sometimes when you are in the government, you have to do something. Um, you know, uh, in Italy is very particular also the situation of how the government are formed. We have the republic president that nominate a person that and this person should have the majority in the parliament. It's not something that comes from us, so we don't elect our prime minister. We don't even elect our national president. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
we elect only the parliament, and not even the name of the people we send to parliament, because with the last laws that they made, we can even not put a preference. So we just put a symbol,
Do you really believe that the
like the
people
football team.
do you really believe that the people that are seated in Italian parliament they read 10 manuals, Anto?
Believe me, most of them they do. Most of them they do. Some of
Mm.
them maybe they don't care, but most of them they do. Also because in the parliament, most of the work is made by commission, and when you are inside in a commission made by different people, they have to follow the rules to make the law. It's not easy to make a law. You need to follow many rules. There is an interesting podcast, maybe I will share with you, in Italian. It was an interview made by Shai of Breaking in Italy. He interviewed deputy elected with the Partito Democratico, and this lady, a young girl, we can think about 30-35 years old, she said clearly, in the first year I had to learn a lot about how to make everything. I couldn't even propose anything because you don't know anything. And this is the truth. When you face the reality of the institutions, there are too many things to learn that people outside don't even realize, don't even consider. So tomorrow we can say, oh, we can make the Naples a forest. Think about making that. It's not easy to make something like that. This is something that is the real aspect of the politics and the electoral aspect of the politics. Of course, there are words, and words must be weighted. However, in the during the elections, the people says everything. You have to be, you have to be able to understand that sometimes many things cannot be possible. This is the reality. Of course, everybody has their opinion. I still believe some things told by some parties during the election period was not meant to be like that. Those are things. Anyway, sorry for this little
No,
excursus
it's true.
in a different way. Maybe I will find the video on YouTube. Let me see. Maybe I can. If I find the video on YouTube, maybe I can give
The
to
one
you.
of Di
But
Maio.
if you have a look at the interview
Uh-huh.
of the founder of Five Stars Movement, Beppe Grillo, with Bruno Vespa
Uh-huh.
on Porta a Porta, Door to Door. It's an Italian TV show, talk show.
Uh-huh.
In
Yes.
2014, that was the first time in 20 years that Beppe Grillo came back to the RAI, which is the national Italian television channel. And if you compare what he said in that interview to what the Five Star Movement is now in the government, it's completely different. It's like a movie. It's another planet. It's curious. That was propaganda. Then when you take the power, you can't make propaganda anymore. So you have to govern, which is different.
Yeah,
Which is
it's
different from being in the opposition. That's why it's much more easy in a country like Italy to stay in the opposition. That's why Meloni has been increasing its
Yeah,
electorate
because she's
in the
on the
last few
opposition.
years.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. When
And
she was
also you told,
Berlusconi, she
yeah,
wasn't
you said
nothing.
sorry. In your in the presentation, it's been written that rethink about some previous reforms made by the Macron government, and you, in particular, you focused on the pension reform.
Yeah.
Why do you think he should rethink about it?
Because there are still people who wanna retire in France. So 2 years are, are can be
But
significant from someone,
but
So
still
it
very
would,
low. Still a low age. In Italy is higher, for example.
yeah, but we are talking about France. In France that could be a tough measure, especially right before the parliamentary election. So it wouldn't be so popular for Macron. It wouldn't be clever for him. So that's why now he stated that probably they're gonna rethink about it. it's a propaganda move. You know.
Propaganda.
Probably later the election they are going to put it into effect.
And also to rebuild the trust with the young electorate. You said 41% of the abstainers were aged between 18 and 25 years old, focusing on issues on which youngsters tend to be more responsive and susceptible. What do you mean that? Do you mean that Macron hasn't made anything for young people? Maybe he didn't made any reform for supporting the young age and the young communities?
Yeah, yeah, because it's curious, but um, many youngsters voted for Le Pen. You know, in Italy, it was different. Many youngsters tend to vote for PD, for example, you know, and there are many youngsters who work, I mean, who operate within the party. On the contrary, Lega um, is is mainly supported by middle-aged, 15, 16 years old of citizens. So yeah, it would be a uh, clever move act by Macron if he focuses on green, um, for example, the green energetic transition, for example,
Okay,
which
makes
which
sense.
is which has been a major topic in the last few months because of the Ukrainian war. So
Okay. I see that the presentation is finished after that. So following what I see here, this was the last one, or something is missing.
no, that's the last part.
Okay, right.
Well, I have to say that this was a very nice way to approach an argument, and I would suggest that from now on always to use
This way.
this. Yeah, I think it's
This
very
way.
Yeah, because
interesting.
you can sum up different
It's
aspects.
very good.
You know,
It's very good. Also, we can
into
also. I was thinking, inspiring to another format made from, for example, from Ivan Greco. Maybe sometime there are some videos about geopolitics and not only news in general that we can watch from YouTube, and it would be great to watch them and maybe comment them. For example, you know what I mean.
yeah,
So there are some things like that that could be very interesting. We have new viewers. So we also have checked some of the articles actually. Maybe we can have a look about some of them if you are interested with. I was especially interested in the one with the Muslim majority island um, that is elected, where of course Le Pen got the first, got a very good result. Or maybe some economical aspect. If Ciro has some article about the economical aspect of France after the election, after the vote, there are some
Yes, I was now looking at
election, some stocks. As you are expert in that.
I was looking at this article. Let me see if I can share the screen. Ta-da. So,
Ok, sta caricando. Show stream. Welcome.
so I just found it randomly, and it's about why economy may secure his re-election. So, why France economy may secure his re-election. So here, as I was saying, there is a bit of explanation about the pools, what's going on between Russians and Ukraine. And here is the interesting part about the GDP and how it varied starting from 2016, the big drop due to COVID. Here you can clearly see how it goes down as soon as COVID started, and it start raising again by toward the middle 2020 until right to today.
Makes
What we
sense.
can see, that is very interesting is that the GDP got a boom, right? Basically, we can say after, because we are really not still outside the pandemic zone, but look at 2016. No, there was no sign of pandemics. Still for 2017, he said, "Look here, look what we are, where we are." Now, there could be many reasons for which GDP can grow so much after a pandemic, and it's also due to the fact that the economy has been in a st- staked situation for a long time. Now, what it say here? It's about the demand. So this is for France, clearly. So the export, the public administration, household consumption, business investment, and the overall GDP. The key boys are the public administration consumption and the business investment. And this proves once more how France is one of those countries which really look at, let's say, external uh, investments with in a nice way. And here we're talking about Q4 of 2021. Now, here it say that France is a leading exporter of pharmaceuticals, military equipment, cars, among other things. But export is the only one of the indicators in the chart that is still below pre-COVID. It is also likely to be further hit by the EU-Russia sanction, given that Russia buys just over 1% of French product produce. The French
Okay,
produce.
this makes sense now.
Yeah.
So even the sanction that they have to Russia doesn't really affect a lot the French economy, also because they don't. So
They don't have
Russia doesn't buy
any
anything
commercial.
almost
Exactly.
from France.
What
Although,
do you think? What do you
yes,
think? Why do you think Macron is trying to? I mean, it's the only European, it's the only West political leader who is trying to,
because he doesn't
you
care.
know, to
Because he doesn't
establish.
care. Obviously, he doesn't care. So because everything he does, even if it goes bad, doesn't affect a lot of the French economy. So he's
Yeah,
the
because
most freedom leader actually in
the
Europe, no?
GDP of France, it's not impacted by Russia almost at all. So
So he's playing this role in order to, you know, to gain much more political influence within Europe, probably. Because Italy and Germany now they are heavily affected by the sanctions, you know,
but you see that
where is
the
France in the
voice
map?
of the export, no, is the lowest one, because this is clear that in the France economy, the import, as it says also here, the import are much more compared to the exports. Instead, indeed, in Italy it's almost the opposite. In Italy, we export a lot, the famous "made in Italy," and that's very strange because
Yeah.
actually I'm surprised to read that because France is like a brand abroad. I think that France has a much deeper connection with US because in US the entire range of products that are produced in France, starting from wine, cheese, etc., are seen
Maybe
like a
it's
brand.
also because maybe the France has focused more on luxury export, so which makes more revenue even if it's less in terms of quantity. Maybe this is can be a reason, but we
The
should
public,
see better what kind of export sector the
yeah.
France export most at most.
And for example, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, not Gucci, sorry, all the Louis Vuitton merchandise is made actually in Italy. Scandicci, I don't remember the name.
Most of these companies don't produce
It's a
anymore in
place,
Italy. Most
I
of these
mean, Louis
companies
Vuitton,
they don't produce in Italy anymore because it's unworthy to produce in Italy when you have a law that let you to make just the tag in Italy and become made in Italy.
Mm.
There is no point to make in
Now,
Italy the products. Even Poltrone Sofa had the same issue. In fact, I think there are a couple of services from Report about that were talking about the made in Italy and how fake is it.
mm. And you have to consider that among the many voices that compose the gross domestic product, the GDP,
Mhm.
we have to consider the unemployment and the inflation. And
Ah,
here
yes.
it says that both are relatively favorable under Macron.
Mm,
So this means that under his guide in these years,
mhm,
keeping the unemployment and inflation low are actually
mhm,
very good achievement for a country's economy. He
mm,
says here that the France unemployment rate fell to 7.4 in the fourth quarter of 2021, no?
mhm,
And it's a level not seen since the crisis, the big financial crisis of
mhm,
the subprime mortgage.
mhm.
So
Yes.
this is a testimony of what he has done with the cutting the corporation tax. Because when you cut the corporation tax, you let's say stimulate the internal economy. You stimulate the companies to develop and to grow, and this means this will produce new jobs, and so you decrease the percentage of people that are unemployed, and that's a very smart move because you pass from 33.3 to 25. That doesn't seem a lot, but for a company that has billions or anyway hundreds of millions in revenues at the end of the year, it's a lot of money that they spend on taxation, and all those money, if
Mhm.
companies are smart, they reinvest within the company, producing a new job, and that's
Mhm.
why we see this. And
Greece,
that was a nice
Greece
move.
has done the same. Greece has done the same a few years ago. They reduced the corporation tax to 15% for
Well,
the first year, and then they have to increase. But yeah, this is the reason why many big companies. I work as well for one of the big companies here, and they hire people. They are easy to come here to get because the government has reduced a lot the corporation tax on them, so making it more convenient.
he says here that the Minister of the Economy, Bruno Le Maire,
Mhm. Bruno
he
Mars.
said that in France there has been created 1 million new businesses in
Mhm.
2021, and the majority of them were micro enterprises with just one or
One
very
or very
few
few employees.
employees.
I think
Yes,
this
but
is a trend that we have so worldwide in 2020, 2021 also. Many people have opened online business like e-shops, most of them,
mm,
and those are I think the category micro enterprises reflect them because actually if you think about most of these shops they just need one, two, three people to run. You once you made the website to another person will select the product, another person take care of the customer service and done.
mm.
So in three people is easy to get to obtain very achievable very good results. So maybe we should
But
see also this data more detailed to see which kind of enterprises are.
But indeed, even if we are talking about the micro enterprises, no,
Mhm,
this still is a sign of a country's economy vitality because you have people which are willingness to open a new business. Let's
of
instead
course.
look at the sister. No, let's look at Italy. How many people in Italy have, let's say, this willingness to start up a company with the taxation that will kill you and with the many other problems, for example, the bureaucratic
Mhm.
problem, which is killing Italy and will keep killing Italy. People are not willingness to starting up a company because they know that before having a stable salary, maybe they will not even arrive to that because they will fail. They will fail much before. There is also statistics in Italy that a larger percentage of company they fail within the first year.
In the first year.
And,
Yeah, true.
and I think that Macron
And I tell you
pushing
why.
this side, Macron pushing this side brought this as a victory, because when in a country you reduce the unemployment, you bring wealth to people that doesn't have a job, that's a victory. And in fact here it says that, because this is an article before the election, and said that this is one of the biggest wins during his first term, and it could be one of the factors that carries him over the line, and in fact it carried him over
In
the line.
April 24. About the fact that in Italy many companies open and they fail in the first year. I have worked for a while in a kind of a new bank for companies, a French company actually, and we were dealing with Italian customer about that. There were a lot of startups opening in Italy, but just to get the funds from the government. The government during 2020 have made like kind of huge funding for small company in tech, like 100,000 euros given with no guarantee, with no guarantees and things like that. To make up, offices, you make up computer stuff, things that you can need in this kind of companies. And I remember not only one, a couple of startups that have done that. So they opened it, they got the money from government. After 1 year, they relocated to United Kingdom, where it was easier to get funding from private VPs. In United Kingdom there is a huge market for startups. It's easy to get funds in United Kingdom from private investors, which can add you value to the company. I mean, like pushing you on the market, providing you with the best expert in terms of marketing, selling, etc., etc. And I remember a lot of startups opening the company in Italy, and after few months, they were calling us back. I need to close my bank account because we are moving to United Kingdom. And those companies, of course, when they shut down, they close the Italian partita IVA, they close the Italian VAT code, they close the company in Italy, and they become company elsewhere. So this is something that I saw as
An example that now you reminded me is, for example, in the south of Italy, the government put at disposal kind of guarantee, which is called Resto al Sud. So I remain in the south, to stimulate people not to escape from the south of Italy and to create businesses in the south of
in
Italy.
South,
But
yeah.
what is the problem? What is the problem with this guarantee? Is that in order to see money, you first need to put them, and then if you're lucky, you will see them in a couple of years or even in 5 years. So meanwhile, you need to provide for all the expenses on your own, and then you will be reimbursed fully. Yet, in 5 years' time, if you don't have the capabilities to keep on with the expenses, it's likely that you will fail. But I mean,
Yes.
that's he said, if you give the money immediately, then the person does not go in difficulties because he doesn't have to ask for a loan, for example.
Yes.
Now, another key after
Yep.
the unemployment, the inflation is the other, let's say, big win of Macron. As it says here, at the end of January, beginning of March, beginning of February, it was around 4.5%, which is, of course, if you look at the trend, it's an upward trend in the inflation. But we need to consider that France kept his inflation quite low, considering that Germany had an inflation of 7.3% and Spain of 9.8%. So if you look at the other European countries, then France still has done better. Of course, the trend is upward, but compared to the other countries during the pandemic, etc., they've done an amazing job. So if you look at these two things, those are those are key points for an economy. So I'm not surprised that Macron managed to win again, because I think that even if people cannot really analyze these points, but they feel it in their daily life, that their purchase power, it remains more or less intact, and that actually there is more job. Those are things that you can see with your own eyes, even if you're not an economist or an expert of finance or geopolitics. And that's, I mean, let's talk more in a simplistic way. France has how many people? What's the population of France? 60, 70, 40? I don't remember.
Let me see.
Now, let's assume the greatest part of the population, they are not expert of geopolitics, economy, etc. So a person which goes for voting, they simply look at the facts. They look at how their life changed during Macron's time. And I think that's what convinced most of them to revote Macron.
They are about 67 million people. So it's
67
not
million,
much
yeah,
more
that's
than
good.
Italy, actually. It's just, yeah, okay. Now it's about 10 million more than Italy currently, but yeah,
But
it's
that's normal. That's
it's
normal.
normal.
That's another impact that the economy has on a country. The
Mm.
fear to have children.
Ah,
France has
yes.
a much more is a much more stable and secure economy towards his citizens. So people are stimulated to create a family. In
Yes.
Italy, instead, you have the government that gives you 1,000 euro, and what do you do with 1,000 euro? You can survive a few months when you have a child with 1,000 euro. And if the
True.
child has problems, 1,000 euro, you spend them in days.
True.
So
True.
there is no stimulus for people in Italy to. So that's why you see people running away from Italy or not creating new families. That's why the average of the age step much forward compared to 10 years or 20 years ago. Now
Mm,
people are having children on average at 35
yes.
in Italy. But why? Because to reach out a decent level in which you can create a family and support it with dignity,
Hmm.
you must wait. So
Must
I'm not
wait. Yeah.
surprised that France has
True.
much more people in
Living there.
terms of
True.
population.
True. True.
Well, that was it. Yeah,
All
it's
right.
actually
Sounds
also the
good.
end of the.
Right, Davide, do you why you
What can
have
I
the
say?
things in France on your computer? Partage quitte, désactiver les sons.
Ah,
Quitte.
with there? No, if I do go out, I go out from the call.
Ah, no. Just stop it. I understand. Cancel. Vabbè, I remove from the stream. Just give me a second. I will do it from here.
All right,
Kick.
cool.
Done. So, perfect. So we have also have approached an economical aspect. Davide, there is any interesting article that you want to share with us about the current situation, or we want to just make a little conclusion?
Yeah, yeah. As Chino said, in the end, most of the people basically don't know anything about it. So, I mean, they don't assess, evaluate politicians based on what is his
He made a very
strategy.
huge, very good explanation.
Uh,
I mean, he has been very focused
yeah,
and straightforward on explaining the article and making comments about.
his
So this is a very good way to do
strategy,
that.
his strategy to achieve, international goals.
Mm,
People evaluate a politician based on their personal situation. So if they
mm,
find a good job, if they can afford having a family, if they can afford buying a car, going on holiday, so probably. But in France, in this case, I think not the majority, of course, but many voters many voters decided to give their vote to Macron, to not give it to Le Pen. I mean, it was the the
Do you think
least
now coming back?
worst
Sorry,
choice for them.
okay, sorry to interrupt. Do you think that Le Pen and how she managed to be quite challenging to Macron? The strategy she used can be used by Giorgia Meloni in Italy.
Yeah, we are
Do you
waiting
think
for
she
that.
will
I mean,
she will be like the
but
teacher
Italy,
of the next far
she
right?
already, no, actually, no, Le Pen, uh, Le Pen, I think she emulated Salvini. Salvini in 2012, 2013, you know. I mean, Salvini
But
at the time he
Meloni,
started
but Giorgia Meloni is a female like her, so Giorgia Meloni is more closer to Le Pen. I mean, in general, in terms of electorate, in terms of political parties, in terms of ideas too. If we think also the electoral rhetoric of Meloni is talking about the real problem, like a mom that have not enough money to buy the books for the child that has to go to school or stuff like that. I mean, this kind of aspect that
yeah,
has
for
been made
sure.
also by Le Pen, maybe can be used and shared by both candidates, both politicians. I mean,
Okay. I have to be careful, otherwise, we are going to the political view, So,
yeah,
in my
we are
opinion,
almost
in Italy
we have
there
the
was
last time, so we can share our opinion, our comment, how we can
in,
figure connection with Italian
in Italy
politics
there
in
are
our.
some political parties that, in my opinion, they are out of the reality. They think about civil rights, which are very important, but in this moment there are many people who, as you said, they can't afford having a child, they can't afford even having a good job, good paid
Mhm.
job. So
True.
even though they studied a lot, for example.
Ah,
So and there are some parties who are very close
mhm,
to this part of the population, which is a pretty big part, not the majority, but the big part in Italy, and
mhm,
they can make the difference during the election. So for sure, in Italy, we are going to vote next year, 2023. So I think from the next autumn, Meloni, yeah, she has to start a campaign because she hasn't started campaigning yet. Either Salvini, but Salvini, I think he is finished. He's literally finished as a politician because after his exploit in Poland, he was so clever to go to Poland to be fucked up by that, not even by a great Polish politician, by the mayor of a border city.
Face workout.
Salvini,
His
No,
face
but the
workout.
funny thing, the funny thing is that
Salvini,
that mayor in this
Salvini
Poland
changed.
city, in this Polish city, knew Salvini, which means, hey man, you have nothing to do in your city that you have to know Salvini in Italy.
But
You know what I
most,
mean?
the most funny thing is Poland. Poland is very close to Salvini. I mean, in terms of immigration
No.
policy, in terms of
In terms of immigration policy,
kind
yes,
of,
they are
let's
very.
say
Oh,
kind
no,
of.
no, no. They are
Yeah, I mean,
extremely
immigration
close.
policy is a
But
must of Salvini. The political
we
must of
noticed this with
Salvini.
the
So,
Ukraine. There are a lot of reportage also that we can have watched on last.
I didn't get the question.
si è bloccato.
No, ecco. We lost.
A meno che non abbia avuto il colpo della strega.
We lost Antonio, but at least
Comunque, ti
he
ricordi
left us
come
with a smile.
padre Edoardo?
Eh.
Ti ricordi padre Edoardo?
Yeah, no,
Aveva una
actually,
spiegazione.
we really lost Antonio. Now he will be panicking, finding the reason of why his internet has been shut down. Well, if he doesn't connect back in a minute, I think that we can also wrap up
I think we can.
the live, because I mean it's 1 hour and a half. We really touched all the points in a diagonal way, so we can also try to text him, and if he doesn't connect, we can wrap it up. I think is that for tonight is good. Can you text him 1 second? I'm trying to reach him as well. Well, actually, if he doesn't have internet, he cannot even reply.
Yeah.
The messages.
I think
we can close. We can close. Okay. So
it was
thanks
a
for
funny way
following.
to conclude and
It actually is. Thanks for following. Thank you, Davide, for participating. Okay, he collapsed. All right. Thank you, and have a good evening.
See you soon. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.